Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books. Well, there's a major cultural shift going on at Warner Brothers Discovery. The reason why that's important is because there's been a major alternate shift in the direction of woke comic books, woke culture, woke television, woke everything, everywhere. And it's a very inorganic thing. It's something that's coming from the top down, from influencers that push it through the culture. It's not that consumers want this. And, Superman was canceled. Yup, Superman was canceled back in, when was this article? April 21st, 2021, to introduce the son of Superman, who after 5 issues of his comic, Jon Kent, decided or discovered or became, whatever the correct explanation is, bisexual, but his series has been canceled after 18 issues. And, you have to wonder, why is this series being canceled? Well, it's not because, the social justice idea of let's replace Superman, but let's make sure that he has different sexual identities than the original Superman. But it's being canceled because it's not selling. And that's the part of the culture shift. We were talking in a video just yesterday about how Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav was being accused of not understanding the advertising industry because he was focusing on trying to sell male-oriented content to male consumers. And he was just trying to explain to the advertising agencies, look, we can get you to reach these male audiences. We can have these special male advertising bundles. We're going to charge you for that specifically, but we can get you the niches that you need to be able to service your big clients. Just so you know, if you're not familiar, advertising agencies generally get a 15% split on all of the gross billing and cost creation for advertisements to support corporate advertising, corporate brands. So it's the advertising agency's job to figure out how to sell the product, how to sell the service. They take 15% of advertising, and their objective is create success for the client. Though that's changing. There was this whole push of all the social justice stuff. It's everywhere now. So when Zaslav came out and he just told them, hey, look, we can get you these audiences and those audiences, female audiences, male audiences, a lot of the people at the advertising agencies were insulted. But they were insulted because they called it archaic and he didn't understand how things work because, God forbid, he should identify the audiences so that the advertising agencies can do a better job for their clients, but also so that Zaslav can do well for his investors and his shareholders and ultimately their clients by just providing good advertising contacts and say, okay, well, we're going to charge you this. They were very, very, very offended. Well, so, DC Comics has been thrown around. Unfortunately, there hasn't been strong leadership at DC Comics for a long time. I care a lot about comic books. I've published more than 1,000 of them. I published my first comic book, G.I. Jackrabbits, when I was 15 years old. It was distributed nationally and internationally. And I've since published a lot of other comic books. I care about what goes on at these companies, but I also care because of how it affects the culture. Stories are the culture. Characters are our culture. With Spider-Man, we learned with great power comes great responsibility. Superman is an aspirational hero. And if you want to have a character with, different sexual identity, preferences, whatever, it's fine. But you have to be very careful about how you handle these legacy characters. And you don't change them unless there's a really, really good reason. So, but there are a lot of changes going on now at DC Comics. Now, if you're not familiar, you may want to check out some of my other videos. This is my playlist of 43 videos of what's been going on at Warner Brothers Discovery since the merger. I did predict that the merger was going to happen, or there would be some kind of a spinoff from AT&T a year before it happened. A lot of other analysts were saying the same, but to me, it just made the most sense for what it was they were doing. But I'm now kind of going out on a limb, and I'm saying, look, this is not the same company it was. there are massive changes taking place at Warner Brothers Discovery to get rid of woke content. But it's not just getting rid of woke content or woke employees or woke departments. Like, they completely gutted the diversity, equity, and inclusion department and made sure that it can't interfere. That was this video. Warner Brothers eliminates woke, diversity, equity, and inclusion office. David Zaslav strikes again. That's a pretty good title. Made it myself. You may want to check that one out. But it's not just that. It's one event after another event after another event. And it's not about getting rid of woke stuff. It's just about getting rid of nonsense. Like, for example, ad agencies saying, how dare you try to sell us advertising outlets on your cable channels that target men or women specifically. That's ridiculous. Obviously, it's ridiculous. And it's not going to stand. It's not efficient. You can't make good money that way. And they're about making money. Warner Brothers Discovery has paid down, I'm the only one that says this, other than the Warner Brothers management, but they've paid down $6 billion of their gigantic debt. So their debt went from $58 billion from April 22 to $52 billion or less, because I don't have the exact day and date. I'm not inside their finances and their books. But they've paid $6 billion down. It's publicly known. It was announced in June that this was definitely happening by the end of August. It's still ignored by many media outlets that are trying to attack the company because the company won't accept anything other than merit and profitable projects. Now, that said, there are a couple of wacky projects that are still coming out from Warner Brothers Discovery. One is one where Velma is now announced to be gay, and they make a big deal of it. There's a new Wizard of Oz take that they're doing, although the same thing was done with a Wizard of Oz take that was done as The Wiz, back in the day. That was interesting because it was so odd back in the day. These are not major things. This is not their Harry Potter franchise. This is not DC Comics. This is not Game of Thrones. They're not fooling with those properties. And the smaller projects, they'll get to them when they get to them. But what's going on now in comics for DC Comics is very interesting, because this is the first example of what I would definitely call, from my experience, management experience, some executive experience, some publishing experience, business experience. It's self-censorship. And you've got Jim Lee over there. This is not something where David Zaslav took a weekend and started studying DC Comics and said, hey, Jim Lee, we need to be canceling Jon Kent. I don't like that. It's not a good representation of the intellectual property. I wouldn't be surprised if a message made it down to Jim Lee's office that said, hey, look, I want to see profitable projects. I want to see projects that respect the brands. Because, I did this in another video, and I'm going to point you to this and say, if you haven't seen it, you ought to see it. Because I've got clips of Zaslav talking about characters and brands and how important it is to nourish the audience. Literally, he says, I've never heard that expression before, nourish the audience. And he doesn't just say it in one interview. He says it in multiple interviews. And all of these interviews predate the merger with Warner Media. When he's talking about nourishing fans and taking care of fans and doing fan service, essentially, he's talking about from the Discovery brands, things like golf, cooking, food, those kinds of shows, not even specifically beloved characters. So they're very, very focused on respecting brands, and not just because it's the right thing to do, it's because that's what actually makes money. There is no social justice agenda, no other agenda going on with the Zaslav management team. It's only about making money, and the way they view they're going to make money is by making really good branded content that satisfies the consumer who's interested in that brand, whether it's Batman or golf. It doesn't matter. It's all treated the same way, that it's just got to be good in the eyes of the consumer, or the content is unacceptable, the business plan is unacceptable, the management would be unacceptable, and such that is why where Batgirl didn't, the movie they canceled, Batgirl, it didn't fit in with all of those criteria. Plus, strategically, it made no sense because they want their theatrical releases to be as big and well distributed as possible and appropriate, and Batgirl was not. Whether Batgirl was canceled completely because it was woke, or whether Batgirl was canceled because the execution of it was too low end, it looked too much like a Warner Brothers TV show, who knows? Do I honestly know? I honestly don't know. I don't even know the movie. No one has the whole movie except the Zaslav team. Not even the director has it. But my expectation is it wasn't respectful of the brand, whatever the hell it was, and that's why they canceled it. That's what they said. And even the director, the people that produced Batgirl, pretty much say the same thing. So let's get into this article talking about the cancellation of Son of Kal-El, of Jon Kent. All right, before we do, please do be sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Okay, so let's get into this article talking about the series being canceled and what they're doing and how it's being explained. This is coming from Bleeding Cool, which is great on rumors and sometimes has great takes on these kinds of things. Superman Son of Kal-El canceled, relaunched as Adventures of Superman, but relaunched as a miniseries. So it ran 18 issues, literally replaced Superman. They literally went and canceled Superman to introduce Superman Son of Kal-El, and then they gave it a few issues up until issue number 5, if you see, to show you his sexuality, hoping that, hey, you know, there's supposed to be all of these audiences. That's what keeps being promised by woke world, media, consumers, whatever. All these people that if they see themselves represented somehow in existing brands, in popular brands, that's going to bring all these additional sales. That's what they keep saying. But the truth of it is it never pans out. I mean, you know, correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong, but it doesn't ever pan out. There's nothing wrong with original content, you know, original characters, even different takes on characters. But like I often say, like, periodicals don't even make any sense. If they wanted to do this, if they wanted to create a standalone graphic novel where Superman had a son who had these proclivities, or he had this different outlook on life, and he was interested, he was bisexual, he was gay, whatever, they could do that as a self-contained story. And when you crystallize the intellectual property that way in a single standalone product, then you don't have the pressure of this ongoing series that the sales dropped off tremendously in this thing. There's a whole bunch of other research I was doing for this that was showing all these conversations and Reddit and stuff. It gets, you know, the long story short is, of course the sales tanked. Why? Because it's too pushy. It's like, no, it's not. People are not interested in this. They're just not. If they were, everyone would be doing it, and those things would sell very well. But if they at least wanted to do this and they treated it as a self-contained graphic novel for completists, they'd pick it up. They'd pick it up. They may like it. They may not like it. You know, if you're a comics fan, I'm a comics fan. I've been a comics fan for a long time. I pick stuff up. You know, as a completist, I'll pick things up. You're not supposed to even like and read everything you pick up. You just pick it up. We don't know why. That's what we do. Collectors do that, but also as just there's some kind of completeness that you feel from picking up things that you're familiar with. You don't want to miss out on what's going on. But this is really excessive and horrendous. So I hesitate to even give the advice, but obviously, if they want to do wacky things with characters, or someone in the publishing department wants to do wacky things with characters, meaning like recreate and retcon, all those other, you can do a self-contained 48-page, 64, whatever, 100-page graphic novel. No matter what it is, if it trades on DC's classic brands like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, anything like that, you can do it. People will buy it. But it needs to be self-contained, and then you keep it in the library forever. No ongoing periodical series. None of that. Because it doesn't work. So it was announced at Comic-Con that Superman Son of Kal-El will end with issue number 18. But fans of Jon Kent do not need to worry! Exclamation point. This is like, okay, so I mean, I'm not going to read this word for word because it's annoying how it's presented. So I'll put it this way. They're doing a 6-issue miniseries arriving in comic shops starting in March. Now, the miniseries will be able to tell the story. Okay, here's what Tom Taylor said. Quote, "I couldn't be more excited for Jon Kent to headline the iconic Adventures of Superman," said Tom Taylor. "It's a real testament to the fantastic response to fans of Jon as Superman. This series is going to be one of the most action-packed books I've ever written, and Jon is going to be tested more than ever. While we can tell you that Superman of Earth 2, Val-Zod, and Jon's nemesis Ultraman will be key characters in the early part of Adventures of Superman, what we're going to reveal at the end of issue number 2 will have everyone talking, and issue number 3 launches us in a direction that no one will see coming." Okay, well, that's very optimistic, and it's positive sounding, and if he was working for me, I would tell him to say the same thing. If he was working for me, I probably would not have hired him. But that said, the self-contained 6-issue story will be the kind of this Jon Kent's entire life and story and existence as an intellectual property. There's nothing wrong with crystallizing this as a 6-issue limited series so that they have it as a trade paperback and it sells in perpetuity. It's not necessarily going to do very well, but it'll do enough, and they can pretend that they didn't fail, and they have this version of bisexual Superman in case they ever want it for other media. That's not an inappropriate thing to do, but what's happened now is Zaslav has created this culture of accountability. So whether there's been one word given down to Jim Lee, or it's just kind of becoming incredibly obvious, merit matters. The work has to be good. It's got to be something that fans are interested in. It's got to be something that could be reprinted. It's got to be something that justifies the library, but never and at no time should it be something that compromises the quality of the brand. Now, changes will come at DC Comics. How soon will they come? As rapidly as possible. There isn't anyone who is confidently leading DC Comics that could be some kind of terrific remaker of what DC Comics is. They will relaunch this. They will relaunch that. But the main thing is, word is kind of out, and it's understood, obviously, that the stuff has to be good and it's got to be on brand. And it's got to be something that supports the library and the brand. If something comes out and it's a financial failure, but it's on brand, that's going to be considered fine. Although eventually they're going to want to see a business model that works for DC Comics. You have to keep in mind, we love comics. That's Comics We Love is my Twitter handle. But in terms of the scale of how it impacts the business, it's not enormous. They will not shut down publishing comics no matter what. They will not. Not going to happen. They're not going to license them out. Not going to happen. But they will shrink and restructure and fix the broken business model. Keep in mind, first of all the DC Comics characters exist. They're very valuable properties, obviously, especially for theatrical. They're trying to establish theatrical. They're trying to establish their credibility with theatrical. They are not going to be able to be put in a position where they're seen as not being able to execute on publishing DC Comics. If they were to license them out, anyone they would license them out to, perhaps except the Image guys, but probably even including the Image guys, they wouldn't be able to produce enough. They wouldn't have the technical ability to do that. They need enough of the stuff coming out that they don't lose their position with respect to comics publishing. Again, not from a financial perspective, but from a market perception perspective. They need the properties to not appear to lose influence or value. I was once offered a licensing deal for our Triumphant Comics line that we were publishing. And it was for representation in for film and TV by someone who'd done that kind of stuff before. And part of our deal was just me directly. Okay, so it's just my experience in that one place. Was we would get a certain percentage of royalties depending on what happened with the deal, but that percentage would be dramatically reduced. I think it was 50% if we stopped publishing the comics, because there would be less physical exposure of the properties. There are always going to be exposure of Batman, Wonder Woman, whatever. They'll be out there, but they need to control the release and the publishing of the comics. So that's basically the story. They're going to do a 6-issue miniseries to tie up the character, throw it in a graphic novel, and say, okay, keep it in print, trade paperback, and now that's that property. Fine. When it comes to Superman, obviously they can't really be screwing around with Superman, which is what was going on before the merger. Now they won't be screwing around with Superman. They canceled Superman. Now obviously they're going to bring back regular Superman. What else is going on at DC Comics? Well, somehow they've got all the Image guys working there. All the guys who produce really dynamic, compelling content. Todd McFarlane is doing Batman Spawn. This is coming out after being in the works for, I think it was since 2004 or something like that. It's a very long time. Mark Silvestri is going over there. Joe Quesada is not an Image guy, but he's returning to do covers. So he's doing covers for starting with Batman over at DC Comics. He's now, I don't know how much money he's got. I'm sure it's a lot. He doesn't need the cover gigs for DC. Why is he doing this? He wants to be part of whatever it is that Jim Lee is trying to throw together, but also to make sure his name is on a short list when David Zaslav is looking at who can deliver for DC Comics, who can they hire, who can they make a manager. I will say this too, is, there have been other managers at DC Comics. There was a general manager who was there, who was a Black Lives Matter guy. I forgot his name, but he didn't make much of a change. Managers are going to have accountability, whoever they are at DC Comics. So even if they wind up putting in Joe Quesada as an editor-in-chief, or if they wind up picking someone else as editor-in-chief, all these guys are going to be expected to deliver on two things. One, do not disrespect the brand. Exciting representations of the brand that fans will be happy with. And two, it's got to be profitable. We got to see a profitable business model. When Jim Shooter was at Marvel, he was responsible for profitability over there as well. And Marvel was profitable when he was there. So they've got Quesada. Jim Lee is obviously still there. They've got Mark Silvestri, as I stated before, coming and doing Batman work there. This, if I were Jim Lee, I would be doing this kind of stuff. I'd be looking at all right, who can we get to draw dynamic things that fans alike to add credibility to DC Comics while we figure out what in the heck we're going to be doing over there with DC Comics. I do think it is completely up in the air. And look, it's going to be up in the air until you see strong management in place and that they've got a business plan that they're going to be executing on. That's just the way it's going to be. In the meantime, they're not going to be allowed to do wacky things with iconic characters and destroy brands. But so if they do additional titles and things like that, they're going to do things that fans will like. And if they don't, they'll do a couple of wonky things that will do badly with fans, and someone at the Zaslav management team will start chopping heads off. I mean, just, nearly literally. They're not going to stand for it. But this, I would say, is the first example I've seen of the new culture shift and the really serious culture shift at Warner Bros. Discovery, where it looks like there's self-censorship going on. They're trying to figure out, how do we produce stuff that's going to please fans, because that's what management wants, and make money, because word is out, they want merit-based products. All right, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up when you like it. And I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.